Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Media. I am your host, Max Kellerhalls, and this is going to be another solo review as I'm going to be reviewing the 2024 remake of
Roadhouse.
Little background. I have seen the original Roadhouse, and I find it to be an absolute charm and delight to watch. It is by far the funniest, cheesiest, most random 80s action, whatever you want to call it, movie I have ever seen, and it is so much fun. Patrick Swayze is incredible as the main character. He has such a presence to him, and he takes the role very serious in this very dumb movie. Sam Elliott is a great character in the film. Just fun all around. Like it definitely has its 80s tropes and cliches that may be a bit outdated, but if you could get past that, you're gonna have a great time. It is so fun. It is just like the ultimate like dude bro fantasy movie of just like, okay, like, hey, let's go to a bar, beat up some people, get the chick, and have a great time. It's got great music. The setting's really fun. Probably the best use of fuck I have ever seen in a movie.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.
That scene is just hilarious. The fights are cheesy and fun in the original. They just like it's the only movie where I've seen somewhat realistic, and I know that's weird to say because there's also like weird kung fu bullshit in that film, but it does feel like a bunch of drunk guys fighting, which I find to be very fun. And if you want to hear a really funny podcast talking about the original film, look up The Bonfire with Big J Okerson and Dan Sauter. There's a very funny YouTube video online of them talking about Roadhouse and also the bad guys trophy room, which is just insane. Oh man, I love the original film, so I was very curious to see how they were going to adapt this new one, because Roadhouse is one of those movies that is such a time capsule of the 80s. Or like I shouldn't say 80s because it came out in 89, so it's like late 80s film. And like there's nothing else like it. It's just very fun. So I was curious to see, okay, how are they going to do it for the modern day? Can this premise work? Are they going to keep it cheesy like the original? And I'll say this, I think it's a good enough remake in that it does what a lot of remakes that I like do well, in that it takes the premise of the original and maybe a couple characters and does something different with it. So yeah, in this film, if you don't know what the premise for Roadhouse is, his there's this guy named Dalton. He has this past. He's well known as someone you don't want to mess with. He's a great fighter, but he's nice. Doesn't want to hurt anybody. Like he will only hurt someone if it's a last resort and they have it coming. So he gets hired by this lady to come down and help fix up her bar and basically be a cooler and try to help like get rid of all the bikers and the guys who are just starting fights in the bar and just trying to like stop them from ruining her bar so that it can get back to what it originally was. And yeah, it's just a movie from then on of just him having to deal with a bunch of tough bros trying to like mess with this bar, and eventually it gets to the point where like this overall scheme to like take over the bar and the land around the bar. It gets crazy. It is a very complicated plot for something that is just initially so simple. So okay, what am I gonna say that I like? I really like Jake Gyllenhaal as Dalton. It's definitely a challenge to be in Patrick Swayze's shadow when it comes to a character like this, and it also just Swayze has like this aura and charisma about him. So it was definitely gonna be interesting to see how Jake Gyllenhaal takes this. I think he really brings his own unique spin on Dalton. Like in the original, like Patrick Swayze had more of a like cool, calm, collected nature about him, but in this film, Jake Gyllenhaal plays that cool, calm in a different way, and it's not like all based on charisma. It's just more based on this need to like not let this animal he has out inside him, like this need to hurt people, is the only thing he's really good at. And he has some really funny line delivery. Yeah, I really like this interpretation of Dalton, and I would like to see possibly more from this character. I'll say this: I also love the vibe and feel of this movie. It takes place in the Florida Keys. I think it perfectly shows this feeling of this small beach town in that like there's a couple locations. You can walk between each location. There's sand on the side of the road, so you can just kind of take your shoes off and walk. Um, there's crocodiles, there's alligators everywhere. But overall, it's just like a very beautiful location overall, and I think that the film does a great job in showing that just this peaceful, serene, no big giant concrete structures. Everything's just like small and I don't know. I really like that feel. It reminds me of when I went to the OBX. Like I just love the way that this movie was able to show that. But like good job on the location scouts on this. Like they did a great job of picking out the locations for where this film is going to be. I found that the bar owner Frankie in this film was a definitely an interesting take on the character. I do miss in the original that weird, creepy like overtone that the original guy had, but I do like in this film that she's more of a laid back and like is more of a character than in the original film. I like a lot of the characters in the film. I like some of the henchmen. They were kind of fun, especially the one played by Arturo Castro. I like the little girl and her father. I thought those were cool characters to introduce. Even though they're just kind of there for like save the cat kind of thing. So it's a Roadhouse movie, so you definitely know that you're going to be getting some fight scenes in this film. How do these fights compare to the original? Okay, they don't do the wild, frantic swinging and unchoreographed nonsense that the original film did. The fights in this are very choreographed. However, they're done in a very interesting way. There's a lot more movement in the camera to like really show uh, the frantic nature of just like things are just moving everywhere. There's straight up moments in this film where there's just POV and the character is just punching towards the camera and you feel like you're getting punched. Or it gives you the feeling of like I'm in a fight and just like there's all this chaos going around. I thought there were some moments where the camera work was done really well and kind of helped the scene out. But then I also found there's some moments where I was like getting really distracted by how things were filmed and I just kind of wanted to see the fight. And I think that also comes down to who directed this film, Doug Liman, who directed the first Jason Bourne film. And if you know anything about the Bourne franchise, the fight scenes are filmed like frantic, shaky cam nonsense. So I'm glad that it's not that, but it also does still feel like he's more focused on the chaotic nature of the scene and instead of just showing the fight. It's his style. I just don't prefer it. I will say this film does implement this really interesting technique that I just now learned about through this film in the four-step filming of a fight scene, or AKA pillow fighting.
And so we came up with a whole new technique, which is an ABCD pass, which is like 4 shots blended together. First, I have the person throw the punch. The second pass, I have the person have a big red pad in their hand in the same timing, hit as hard as they can. The third pass, the hand hitting the pad for real. And then the final pass is just a blank background pass with nothing in the foreground, so you can blend all those shots together.
It definitely helped to make the punching and like the overall fights in this movie look real and visceral. Like it felt like people were actually getting hurt and muscle was getting bruised and you can see like people getting cut. Like it's very well like edited and like I gotta also give it to the sound design. The sound effects for the punches were really good and it's the kind of punching sound effects that I like where like you can hear the bone and the flesh make contact and then the sweat kind of like pulling back from the body. So it's got this weird, gross, wet, muscly, like concussive force sound to it. Oh, it really sounds good. I gotta applaud the sound effects team for the fights because there's a lot of punches thrown in this film and they all sound like that and it's all done very, very well. I think the only thing that I have against this system of fighting and fight choreography is that it needs some work and some fine tuning because There was a lot of moments in the film that I could notice like some really obvious cuts in between impact of face meeting fist and then the reaction. I noticed a lot of cuts and it felt really jumpy and weird. And I just think that it needs a little bit more refinement. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say on like the fight scenes overall. I'm gonna start getting to negatives or like things I didn't like about the film. But I kind of want to kick it off by saying something that like was negative, but also was the most fun part of the film, and that's Conor McGregor. And he's a terrible actor. Like he's not good. His line delivery is so off. However, they make his character so fucking wild and crazy and weird. Like one of my favorite little jokes is he never like parks his car. He always just crashes the car into like a tree or like a building at one point. But yeah, Conor McGregor's character is just so wild and so different than anyone else in this film that it does kind of bring that energy that I liked about the original film into this. So, for as bad as he is as an actor, does have this really cool and fun, charismatic presence in the film that kind of threw me back to the original, and I really appreciate that. So I can't say I hated him in the film. I can't say he's a bad actor in that like he did what he was supposed to. His character was this bad guy, and that's how they used him. So yeah, I just gotta give him credit. All right, now I'm gonna get more into my negatives, and there's not many, but let me start off with like a small negative, and it's not really that big of a deal because the film really doesn't care that much about it either. And that is the romance between like Dalton and this nurse doctor girl, played by Daniela Melchior. It's nice. It's fine. They have somewhat good chemistry, but it doesn't feel romantic. It that just kind of comes out of nowhere. Honestly, it felt rushed and just like check marky. Like, oh, we gotta have a romance in the film, which sounds like okay, well, sure. It was just weird, and I didn't feel that it worked in the end. Even though I feel like the actors were really trying to make it work, there might have been more scenes that just got cut between the two, and that's fine. If you were gonna like sacrifice anything in this, it probably would be the romance plot. However, that being said, it does come back in the end to be the third act, let's save the girl thing. I do really like Danielle Melchior as an actress, and I want to see her in more things, perhaps more dramatic things, just because I think she can really bring it. But yeah, I think my overall problem with the film is that it feels very run of the mill, and that it's a basic plot, and the original film was a basic plot as well. However, I felt like this one has all of the cheese drained out of it. Maybe there's a little bit in there, in that the overall plot is a bit silly. However, the actual like tone and feel of the film, it just kind of feels like a run of the mill action movie that you'd see on FX or TNT on a random day. You can watch it and have just fun time watching it with just like it's just like a very chill movie. I do really like these movies that I like to call like rainy day films, in that like if it's a rainy day outside, you don't really have much to do. You're gonna work on some chores around the house, or you want to do something else. You have this film on in the background. It's got some nice music, has some fun scenes, has some funny moments. You watch it, have a good time. However, that's also a problem in that like it just feels kind of blasé, one note the entire time. And the only times that it's not one note is when like Conor McGregor shows, and when he does, he kind of makes this film a little bit more fun and cheesy and enjoyable to watch. Especially when you have a film like when you're trying to remake a film like Roadhouse, and you don't have any like fun cheesy elements, then it just kind of feels neutered, and that's not fun to say because like the original one is just insane, and this one is not insane. It takes it a little bit more serious. I guess it's just the title that like if you were to call it Roadhouse, have it be fun, have it be crazy. And the third act kind of gets there, but it's nothing like the original. They don't do any fun things like there's no throat ripping. There's no Sam Elliott character in this film or anything like that. Like, there's no like memorable characters aside from Conor McGregor, because everybody kind of plays it straight. I just think they sucked all the cheese out of this film. It has no taste to it, so it's just kind of boring and not that fun. So I would always say watch the original one if you want to have like a good time and bring some, get some drinks together, have some friends over, laugh at some stuff. And this film, watch it on a rainy day. That's what I'd say. It's just fine. It's a perfectly reasonable remake of the original. There's not much to this film to talk about. There's nothing like, it's just there. And sometimes that's fine. Not all movies need to be like the best. Some of my favorite movies are just ones that I could put on at any time. And this could be one of them over time, but again, it's a remake to Roadhouse, and I'll always just go back to that original film and not this one. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Have you seen the original Roadhouse? Or have you just heard it from like the Family Guy sketches? Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Support us on our Patreon. We're planning to do a lot in the month of April regarding Anime April. If you subscribe to the Patreon, you'll get some exclusive content that we are going to be posting for the month of April. Yeah, share this video around. I hope you have had a fun time, and yeah.